Not too many weeks ago, I was traveling throughout the city near a very busy intersection. And the place where I was traveling was near the hospital. And so as I'm at the light, I'm observing what's going on around me. And some of the traffic is moving, the rest of us are standing still. And I noticed an elderly gentleman and his wife waiting at the corner of the intersection. And when the little signal allowed them to go forward, they stepped off the curb. Now, they were incalculably old. They each had beautiful white hair, which right off the bat I was jealous. But they were slightly bent over, with shaking hands and unsteadied limbs. They moved cautiously towards the white lines, and then after stepping off the curb, the man took the woman's arm, holding it closely and tightly as she shuffled into the streets, despite what looked to me his own unsteadiness. As they get about maybe 2/3 of the way across, moving what you and I might say is painfully slow, the light changed. And all of a sudden, the car started honking horns. But the man never wavered. He never took his eyes off of his wife. He never pulled his arm back. He didn't shove her. He just kept escorting her with great love and care through those white lines across to the other side. He carried her and supported her, even though his own legs, it appeared, were unsteady, much like hers. I recall that she leaned on him with what looked like total faith and confidence, as if he was the very rock of shelter himself. It appeared that her trust must have made him stronger, as he was not given up. He was not going to force her to go faster than she could, because she might trip and fall. And together, they eventually made it to the other side through the traffic, leaning on each other and their faith, and I'm sure their love in each other. The impatient drivers that were around and the preoccupied passers-by, I think they missed the point. I think they missed a miracle that had taken place right in front of their very noses. It was an example of perfect trust and steadfast love right there as the couples linked their arms and their hands shook. I think that this little illustration that I've shared with you is good to share on this particular day when we're reading the Gospel of the Good Shepherd, because we live in a very busy world. And it's true, sometimes I get a bit impatient, maybe you do too, when you have to get somewhere and the traffic is painfully slow, or someone is going below the speed limit, which usually makes me lose my religion. But the trusting love of that, I'm going to guess, long married couple, struggling to move as fast as they could, to me it mirrors the care of Jesus, who is the compassionate shepherd. The very work of good shepherding is entrusted by the risen Christ not only to husbands and wives, not only to priests and sisters and brothers, but is entrusted to every one of us. Everyone in this room is called to be a type of the Good Shepherd in whatever vocation we live or circumstances of our lives. To be a disciple of Jesus is not simply to go through the motions or to be a hired hand who acts only to be compensated or who is concerned only with his or her welfare. To follow Jesus is to recognize and to honor the sacred duty that every one of us possesses, because we too are embraced in the limitless love of God. This weekend, I would like to make an invitation to engage you, to be a good shepherd for someone else. This Good Shepherd Sunday and several years previous to this, and probably well into the future, on this particular Sunday, we make an effort to remember the priests of our diocese who have in some way inspired us or served us throughout our lives. Each year that this gospel is read, we remember their profound impact on our lives. You might want to consider the priest that baptized you, or the priest that heard your very first confession, the priest that gave you your first Holy Communion. We may want to remember with prayer the bishop who laid his hands on our head and anointed us with sacred chrism as he confirmed us. The priest who provided the opportunity for you to go to a Catholic school by his tireless work in raising educational dollars and hiring the best teachers he possibly could. Maybe it was the pastor who visited your faith formation classes and made sure that you felt welcomed at retreats or gatherings. Whoever those priests may have been, feeble as we are, we shepherded you as very best we could. You and I, this weekend, are now asked to support the elderly priests who live in our diocese. You may not know this, but a while back, and I want to say it was up to about the mid to late 1960s, priests and religious were not either permitted or it was not encouraged to be a part of the Social Security, which meant that there's a number of priests, and I know the sisters have all gotten back into the program, but there's a number of priests that don't have Social Security because it wasn't part of their of the era that they were serving. And now they live, some of them alone, in small apartments. Other retired priests live in our diocesan home for elderly priests, which is located right behind St. Mark's Seminary on East Gore, and it's next to the Carmelite Monastery. And some priests choose to maybe pay a small fee and live in a rectory and just help out at a parish. I think you might remember Monsignor Ernest Daly. What a great guy he was. He was a good holy priest. And after he retired here at Our Lady of Peace, he went to live down at St. Jude's, and I know that he was an immense help to that parish, hearing confessions and taking daily masses as whenever was required. These men worked their entire lives to care for us either directly or as part of a group of clergy that served us. And now I'm asking you to think about what you can do to show some care for them. I'd like you to consider two possible ways. One of them is, have you ever considered looking up their name on the directory in the Diocese of Erie? It's on eriercd.org, the website. And you can, if the priest is still alive, you can find that name in there. Send him a card. Let him know that you're thinking about him or saying a prayer for him. Maybe thank him. Father, when you said this to us as kids, I'll never forget it. Boy, that was a great lesson, Father. Thanks so much for what you did for me and my classmates. Or maybe, Monsignor, I know that it was really hard. You had to really kind of press us to pay down the debt and to take care of what we had. You took all the blame and all the guff. We have what we have today because you believed in us. Thank you. Another way to do that, very practically, is at the exits, the main exit, and over here, there's a basket, and it's the Good Shepherd collection. And those dollars, whatever you put in there, great or small, they mean a lot to the priests. because sometimes we sit back in our retired years and wonder, did I do okay? Sometimes we never get the feedback. Here's how you can give feedback to the good priests throughout your lives that served you, that now are older. We're asked to support our elderly priests because these men work their entire lives to take care of us. Good shepherding is not about dominating over people. Good shepherding is not meant to be patronizing, nor is it for the weak and the self-absorbed. Good shepherding is selfless and generous work that realizes with gratitude that we are sometimes the shepherd able to serve and to lead, and sometimes we are the shepherd that needs shepherding ourselves. Christ calls each one of us to imitate his loving servitude in the image of the Good Shepherd, to bring compassion and healing to the sick, the troubled, and the abused, to bring back the lost, the scattered, and the forgotten, and to enable our brothers and sisters to move beyond their fears and their doubts so that they will be able to embrace the mercy and the love of Almighty God. I hope that you'll do what you can and not just let this be a collection. I hope that you will do what you can just to think for a minute. You would be a totally different person today if you hadn't met Father so-and-so who taught you in school, or Father so-and-so who visited you or your mom or your dad at your house when someone was sick. Remember what it's all about. It's about us taking care of one another under the direction of Jesus Christ. I thank you for your attention.